It's more challenging than ever to meet the demands of competing priorities that work throws our way. From emails to reports and project proposals, we need help to get it all done. Grammarly is the essential AI communication assistant that boosts your productivity at work so you can get more of what you need done faster, no matter what or where you're writing. Grammarly sets the standard for responsible AI and equips you with the best tools to do your job, like AI-powered features that help you write and edit quickly everywhere you write, or tone features that help you communicate more confidently. Just a few clicks can tailor your tone and writing so you come across exactly as you intend. No wonder 93% of professionals report that Grammarly helps them get more work done. Let Grammarly take the busy work off your plate so you can focus on high-impact work. Download Grammarly for free at grammarly.com/podcast. That's grammarly.com/podcast.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
1 hour to go in this work week for us here at the Hunt Palmer Show. Hopefully your work week is in the rear view mirror. If it's not, we will get you to the finish line here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Friday shows brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. A lot to cover in the next hour. Should the Saints look into trading Chris Olave? And is there a suitor that's making overtures towards the Saints in that respect? We'll talk about it coming up in the next segment. For now, let's go to Columbia, South Carolina. That's where we find Koki Riley, LSU beat reporter for The Advocate. Joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Koki, how are you?
Doing well. How's it going?
It's going all right. It'd been better if they close out a 2-run lead in the 8th inning, but that was not to be last night. You got a chance to chat with Jay Johnson after the game. I'm sure that was probably a fairly brief conversation, but what were the vibes with LSU after that one went awry last night?
Disappointment, frustration. I've been around them for when the vibes were worse. What comes to mind, especially, is after the Arkansas series and the Tennessee series last year on the road, where they got swept in both, and the vibes are really, really down. Especially after the Tennessee series, man, it was about as dark as it gets. But it was like, I think it was just like, I won't say it was shock, but it was definitely just disappointment, and just wanted to move on to the next day.
I read your gamer in The Advocate last night before I went to bed, and I know that you asked Jay about the 2 runners that were thrown out in the 5th inning at third base. What was kind of his look at that from the dugout?
Yeah, with the Braswell play, he thought that obviously Braswell misread the play, and he thought the ball was hit too hard for him to try to go from first to third with nobody out in that situation. If it was 1 out, I think you could have maybe made the argument for him to go there, at least try to make the guy make a play. There's advantages of having a runner on third with 1 out, as Jay has said, and as which is just also true. With nobody out, and the fact that Braswell just blew off Coach Jordan's sign, which I could see that in real time. That's where that sort of issue in that play happened. Then with the Curiel play, it was definitely different, where they wanted him to get the third base. He was running on the pitch. It was a 3-2 count. And Jared hits the ball pretty hard to left field, which was maybe the slightly unfortunate bit of it. He hits it to the right, and he's easily in at third. But anyway, he hits the ball in left field, and I think Curiel made the right decision to go to third base, and he might have actually been safe if he had just slid. But him not sliding is something that's a mystery to me and a mystery to Jay, to be quite frank about it. So, the last one was really bizarre. Why didn't he slide? I have no idea why he didn't slide. I don't think anyone really knows why he didn't slide. One was a really bad read and a really bad mechanical decision from a mechanical error from Braswell in terms of just not looking up at the third base coach as he's rounding second base. That's just a general rule of thumb that you learn in high school. And then with Curiel, it's just deciding not to slide there, which I don't know. I just don't know.
What should the level of concern be with Zach Cowan right now?
Higher than it was after the A&M series. but I don't know. It's hard to it's definitely on my radar more than it was 2 weeks ago. And the bizarre part about it is that in between we have a really good outing against Arkansas, where he was fine, more than fine. I might have given him one hit in that outing, but he definitely looked a lot better than he did last night, where I thought that was easily his worst performance of the season. He was just getting hit around silly. That can happen when you don't have the most explosive stuff and you're not, commanding your pitches to the best of your ability. But yeah, that was very, very concerning. And it seemed like South Carolina, similar to Texas A&M, had a lot of trouble with LSU's big stuff guys. Maybe not a lot of trouble, but at least more trouble with those guys, and swinging and missing and whatnot. Than a pitcher like Cowan, who is just much more about finesse and is literally a change of speeds. So, sometimes that mostly that's worked in their favor this year, but it didn't work in their favor last night.
Sure did not. I thought Jaden Newt and Chase Shores were both very, very good. What did you see from them, and what do you see as their role moving forward?
I thought Shores was a little bit shaky, just not quite as sharp as he looked against Arkansas. He got the job done. Josh Pearson helped him out quite a bit with that diving catch, right? But Jaden Newt was fantastic. I thought especially for that 4-inning stretch, he comes in with the base load and nobody out. He only allows one inherent runner to score. Retires 12 straight batters at one point. He was just fantastic, and he did get hit around more the second time through. And I wonder if he's just a first time through the order guy right now for them. But if you can get 9 outs and be good against most teams in the SEC, and that means you're going to be a big weapon, for 2 or 3 innings when you get to a regional or even a super regional. And that's huge for this team. They don't really have that outside. They haven't really had that outside of Evans and Cowan this year. And if he could, not saying he's going to retire 12 straight. And most of these teams they're going to face are going to be better than South Carolina. No offense to South Carolina. But he also looked pretty good last weekend, and he's looked pretty solid in SEC play in general. So, I was almost surprised they didn't pitch him more last week. But I think he's quickly turning into one of their 2 or 3 best relievers right now.
I completely agree. And I also, in the same vein, talked about Connor Ware in my opening. I said he's basically out of runway. There's no time to step up now. It just never really happened. And we may see him again, but I don't think that they can truly trust him. That's just my take. What's your take on that matter?
Yeah, I think I agree with you completely. And it's all about the command, right? He's just not throwing enough strikes. And when he's locating that high rising fastball at the top of the zone, it just has to be close enough to the zone, but he's not throwing it close enough to the zone. He has way too many bad misses. And when you're missing that badly all the time, it's just much harder for you to be effective, to play to your strengths. So that's kind of where he's at the moment. And it's kind of bizarre to watch. This is the guy who threw 4 no-hit innings against EBU, which is a team that might host a regional. So it's kind of bizarre, honestly. And they've had a decent amount of success stories on the mound this season, but this is one where it's definitely gone sideways on them in kind of a hurry.
No question about that. Cade Anderson tonight, and then you figure Kason Evans probably available. What's your best guess on Kason Evans, being that he did start the game on Sunday and extend a little bit? What do you think? Is he available tonight, or is that more of a tomorrow thing?
If they're smart and safe about it. But so I think the Anderson decision kind of informs the Evans decision in a way, right? Because they didn't want to stretch Anderson, pitch him on a day's less rest on Thursday. So why would they do that with Evans? Where he pitched, we threw 80 plus pitches on Sunday. Sure, he's probably available to throw Saturday and give him something, just so he's not sitting for 2 weeks. Okay. But why use them on Friday if you don't need to? Maybe if they're in a 1-run game tonight, they could do it. But I doubt it. I think that's the best way I'd put it. I just kind of doubt it.
What did you make of the offense yesterday? I could go a lot of different ways, but I'll leave it open-ended to you. How did you feel they played offensively?
I kind of agree with you where there's like a whole bunch of different ways to go about it. I think there were some at bats that were like pretty ugly and definitely, there was definitely a point in the game where I was like, oh, this is the typical, not typical, but this has been when LSU struggling on offense, it looks like this, but then they also had 11 hits. They also scorched the ball a whole bunch of other times that didn't fall in for hits. They kind of got unlucky a bit last night just on that. And, when they score 5 runs, they win the game, right? They were 34-1 going into last night when they scored at least 5 runs. So all those things considered, I thought it was like an okay performance. I think if this team had a much better pitching staff, I would have said it was a fine performance and maybe even a good one. But you want to be able to hit the ball more. You want to be able to hit the ball more against this sort of pitching staff, though. I mean, this is probably the worst. This is the worst pitching staff in the league outside of Missouri. So you want to put up crooked numbers. I mean, last night they threw their best pitchers, but even then, I think you want to be able to put up at least 8 runs in that game. And I think they would have if they just didn't run into those outs in the 5th inning, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, they could have easily scored 4 or 5 runs in that inning if they don't run themselves right on out of it. There's no question about it. So I shot you text last night, but just for the audience, like, what's the environment like, and what do you expect over the next 2 days?
The environment last night was kind of tough. Tough in the sense that there's not a lot of South Carolina fans there. Yeah. I mean, like, they're playing Sandstorm and after pitching changes and stuff, and like it's just like you can see there's really not a lot of towels being thrown up there. I don't know. It looks like a bad environment. It looks like a sparse environment. It is a sparse environment, and it's not your typical SEC road environment. So like if anyone tries to make the argument that, well, they're on the road in the tough environment in Founders Park, that was not the case. Like, this is probably a worse environment than the Oklahoma environment was. The Oklahoma environment wasn't that great because A, it was freezing, and B, like, they have a much smaller stadium. Like, the stadium is bigger. It's warm out there, but it's not, unbearable to watch baseball in, and yet no one's there because the team's, 6-22 in SEC play.
Does your gut tell you they win the last 2, or they drop another one?
I think they win the last 2. They just have such a massive pitching advantage to go along with a general talent advantage that I have trouble seeing them losing these next 2 games. I mean, if they were going to lose a game, it was definitely going to be last night because of the pitching stuff, and like South Carolina was going to throw their better arms. LSU, was not going to push it with Anderson and Ianson. So now that that the pitching scales turn completely towards LSU's way, I imagine that they're going to win the next 2 games. But heck, it's baseball. You never know.
Sure don't. You can follow Koki. He'll be there for the rest of the weekend. Read his stuff in The Advocate as well. Koki, we appreciate the time. We'll catch up to you in Hoover.
Awesome. Thank you.
He is Koki Riley with The Advocate, joining us from Columbia. All right, we'll step aside. Let's talk some Saints. Should they trade Chris Olave? I got thoughts next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Look, closet space is something that I certainly never thought about, but then my wife moved into the house and she looked around and goes, where am I supposed to put all my stuff? And we didn't have room in our first house. So we had stuff in one bedroom. We had stuff in the hall closet. We had stuff up in the attic. Like, it was a bad scene. And we changed that by moving. But you don't have to move to improve your closet situation. If you're not happy and you got suitcases jammed in somewhere and not enough room for your sport coats or not enough room for all the shoes, well, fix it. David Duvall and his team are happy to come in and customize a closet to your exact specifications. It just starts with a questionnaire. You fill it out, and they start to design, and I can promise you this, they'll do it right the first time and leave the competition behind at One Bath and Closets. They've got financing options available, 0% up to 18 months. That's same as cash. And he can do it exactly for you. It's One Bath and Closets. Contact David Duvall and his team at OneBathAndClosets.com. OneBathAndClosets.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. LSU in South Carolina tonight at 6 o'clock. If you want to listen to it, you can find it on our sister station, Eagle 98.1. Pregame at 5:30. Chris Blair and Bill Franquez will be on the call from Founders Park. Tigers got to have it. Kate Anderson will be on the mound. Been talking about it a lot over the last hour and 18 minutes. So let's shift things over to the black and gold. There are some reports, or I guess I should say basically one report, coming out of the Steel City, that would be Pittsburgh, that the Steelers are checking in on Chris Olave and his availability via trade. Adam Crowley is a host on 93.7 The Fan up in Pittsburgh, and he sent that tweet out. And right now, the Saints are in a position that they have not been in 2 decades. You're at the bottom of a rebuild. You've got a brand new coach. You've drafted a quarterback. And you don't really have high expectations for this coming season. And while the Saints would not tell you that in a press conference, I do believe that many realize that, okay? And so you're now in a position that you have not been in a long time to do some things that you have not done, really this regime has not done. And that started a little bit last year when you traded Marshawn Lattimore, and I thought that was absolutely the right thing to do. Aging corner, but an asset you can recoup something with. And they were able to score a draft pick for him, and I was all for that. And I still believe that you should be listening to opportunities to increase your assets to get younger and cheaper. That's the chorus that we sing all the time when we're talking about the Saints. Got to get younger and cheaper. And so should the Saints trade Chris Olave essentially for draft picks? And as is always the case when you talk about trades, like, the answer lies in what the return is. If you tell me that you can recoup 2 second-round picks for Chris Olave, well, yeah, I'm listening. I'm all ears. If you tell me, yeah, we'll give you a 6th for him, like, wait a second. And that's very likely what the conversation kind of starts with, right? So my answer to this is, barring some completely unforeseen offer from Pittsburgh, which that organization is not really in the business of making unfounded moves. It's a pretty solid organization. No, you don't trade Chris Olave. Chris Olave is 24 years old, about to play his year 25 season. When he's healthy, Chris Olave has put together back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving years with suboptimal quarterback play. You're talking about the Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton year and half a Derek Carr. So I'm not in a hurry to move a 25-year-old 1,000-yard receiver who's right now on a rookie deal, who's not going to break the bank when it comes time to sign a contract extension. The Saints are bad at wide receiver relative to the rest of the league. They just are. You look at the rest of the league and you stack Chris Olave as a 1, Rashid Shaheed as a 2, older, slower Rashid Shaheed, a.k.a. Brandon Hooks, is a 3, and then whatever else is beyond that. Like, that's relative to the rest of the NFL, that's bad. I'm not in a hurry to move the best piece of the bad position to go get draft picks. I'm all for draft picks. I like draft picks. Mickey Loomis doesn't use enough draft picks. We all know this. But Olave is one of the guys that you can build around. I talk about this all the time when I'm talking about Saints players. Is he going to be on the next really good Saints team? And Chris Olave very much could. Demario Davis is not. In my opinion, Alvin Kamara is not. Tyrann Mathieu is not. But some pieces like Eric McCoy, like Taliesin Fuaga, like Chris Olave, like Brian Brzee, those guys can be. Alante Taylor, Kool-Aid McKinstry. And Olave is part of that mix. Hopefully Tyler Shook's on that team. But I'm not in a hurry to just sell off all the assets. This is not a Florida Marlins 1998 fire sale here. This is, okay, I've got an aging asset, not going to be worth it for me, move him. Chris Olave is a good player. Now, you could convince me that the Saints are very, very concerned about his health, that he's expressed to them that there may be some issues. Like, if that's the case, and there are things that I don't know that are not public knowledge, well, that changes the conversation, but I don't have that information. If I just go off of the production on the field and the statistics, Chris Olave is a guy I'd like to stick around for 4 or 5 more years. I don't feel that way about some of those aging players that I just rattled off. So while I'm willing to listen to every offer at this point, the Saints are in a position, if anybody makes a phone call that is willing to give draft picks and more availability to young, cheap players, the Saints have to pick up the phone. But if it's, I really like Chris Olave to come be our number 2 wide receiver, here's a 6th rounder next year, click. That's no good for me. That's a guy that could be in the future plans for the next good Saints team. We do have to worry about the injury stuff, but right now it appears he's healthy and good to go. So I'm not in a hurry to move on from him. You need some guys at wide receiver. You're probably going to go into free agency for 1 or 2 more. Probably going to need to draft one next year. And I don't think Chris Olave is necessarily an NFL 1. He doesn't scream number 1 receiver. He is a very, very productive NFL wide receiver that is an above average 2. He's one of those guys. He's a below average 1, above average 2. You'd like to plug in another guy with him, but I'm not in a hurry to part with him just because the Saints are in a rebuild and it's a fire sale. That's not the case in New Orleans right now. So no pressing news at this point, just an internet rumor that has buzzed up. And again, listen, but I'm going to need significant return if I'm going to part with a 24, 25-year-old wide receiver who is shown he's an 1,000-yard guy. My 2 cents on Chris Olave with the Saints. Jordan Kitchens, you got your black and gold hat on. The Steelers pick up the phone and say, "Hey, we'll give you a 3rd rounder for Chris Olave." How you feel about that?
I might fart on the phone.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, the problem I have with Hunt is that the position's already weak. All right,
yes,
so
it's weak.
You remove Olave, you're looking at Rashid Shaheed, who does have injury history.
He does.
Brandon Cooks,
who's old as dirt.
Bub Carrington. Yeah, that doesn't really scream, about, even if we are in a rebuild, you do have 2 young quarterbacks that you kind of want to give them something to work with. Yeah. So you remove your best piece receiver wise, that's a huge problem. So I'd say this. You just picked up his 5th-year option. So why move him if you picked up his 5th-year option? That means you kind of you see a future with him. You should have just traded him, but not pick that up and just got rid of him at that point.
I'm with you. I think that's a guy you got to build around. Beck, you have any thoughts on a Chris Olave departure if you're going to get some draft picks for it?
No, it's not worth what you're going to get back for him. He provides. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, we're not talking about keeping Chris Olave because we think the Saints have a chance of being a playoff team within the next 2 years. But at the same time, you gotta keep guys like Chris Olave on the team because he's one that is going to be important. Like the fans like him. Like I'm not trying to say they're trying to sell tickets, but at the same time, like you can't just make a team devoid of talent, and the return is just not worth what you're going to get. What you're going to get in return for him is not worth it, and you really would have no really wide receiver 1 if you did trade him. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I'll quote Charles Hannigraf, our colleague here from Live at Lunch, who often uses this metaphor when talking about sports. I think it's Apollo 13 is the movie. It says, what do we got on the spaceship that's good? Because there's some kind of blow up and they're trying to get home. Well, what do we got that does work?
Yeah.
There's not a lot on the Saints spaceship that works. Olave is one of the things that works. Yeah. So let's keep that there and try to build on it is kind of my 2 cents on the issue. So no thank you to the Steelers on Chris Olave. All right, let's come back. We got 30 minutes to go. We'll find something to talk about. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Friday shows brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. You've got graduation party coming up, got a birthday party coming up.
Shout out to Cassie graduating.
Shout out Cassie graduating today. Big deal. Awesome for Cassie. She'll be back in action, I'm assuming, on Monday, but spending some time with the family after walking across the stage today. So big shout out to Cassie Spazzali for graduating. If you're like Cassie and you're graduating, having the fam over, want to feed in bulk, Corks can always help you out with that. Got the big trays of that crispy fried catfish, jumbo Gulf shrimp, shoestring fries, honey butter rolls. They got it all, and they are happy to help you with your catering orders. So if you're feeding the office for a lunch and learn or something, got a birthday party coming up, check out the folks at Corks. You can check out the catering options at corksfishandshrimp.com, corksfishandshrimp.com. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things we saw in the game last night defensively. That play Stephen Milam made up the middle was absurd. I'm not even close to too proud to do this. I was dead wrong on Stephen. I don't know if I was wrong on Stephen Milam. I just was skeptical of it, and that has turned out to be very silly. And I'll tell you, I was skeptical of it because I still have in my mind Stephen Milam's first fall. And I went out there and watched a number of scrimmages, and he was kicking it all around at second base like it was a game of soccer. Like, he was bad at second base. And they played him at second, and then they wanted to see if he could play some short, and then he got sick in the fall and couldn't practice. And, like, I'm just going, well, I know he doesn't have a cannon for an arm, and I've seen him make a lot of errors at second in the fall. Like, I'm not sure that's the guy you want to put at shortstop. And that was my mindset coming into the season. Like, I'll need to see it. Well, I've seen it, and I've seen it to the point that he may be the best defensive shortstop I've watched at LSU. Now, that is very high praise. Bregman became excellent his last year. I thought Austin Nola was sensational at shortstop when he was here at LSU. But Milam, I think, has 4 errors on the year, maybe 3 errors on the year, and has made some spectacular plays. And that play he made going to his left yesterday was sensational. So that gives me a lot of confidence. Milam and Dickinson up the middle is an excellent combination in college baseball. College infielders make a lot of errors, and those two guys have not. They've been really, really good up the middle of the field for LSU. The play that Josh Pearson made on that sinking line drive, and then the presence of mind to hop up and throw a strike to second base to double the guy off, wow. That looked like the play of the season, because you immediately went from that and went and put a 2-spot up to take control and get Zach Cowan in the game. And that was going to be the play that won it for LSU in a tie game with 2 guys on to come make that play. And then you were going to win one of the last 2, and you were going to be a national seed, and that was going to be the defensive player of the year. Of course, LSU gagged the lead away, so now it's kind of lost. But that was incredible. It's not the most impactful defensive play that Josh Pearson has made in his LSU career. That, of course, was the catch of the Wyatt Langford sizzling line drive in Game 1 of the national final. But Pearson has played really good defense in mainly left field for 4 years now. He's a really good defensive outfielder, and that was a great play that he made last night. When it comes to the 2 balls that went off the wall that went for triples, one was in right center with Brown, one was down the left field line with Pearson. I saw some folks on the internet and in my mentions talking about you got to make that play, and Curiel makes that play in left and Pearson doesn't. Both of those balls hit high up off the wall. Like, I'm not telling you it's an easy play. I'm not telling you that it's a play that you should make. I'm telling you, and I'm not telling you that it's impossible to make it. It would have been a really tough play to catch either one of those balls. I know that the guys got to the wall in both instances, but I don't fault Jake Brown or Josh Pearson for either of those plays. Like, they hit way above their head on the wall. So I think both of those are just triples that were hit pretty good off the bat. The play-by-play call on the last triple that the big left-hander hit was a little awkward. I'll tell you, like, just candidly, my observation of that, I was writing my story on my kitchen counter and not looking at the screen when it was hit. And I'm listening to him as I'm finishing a word on the keyboard. And in my head, as I'm listening, it sounds like it's going to be very much a foul ball.
It sounded like, so while I was watching it, when he hit it, it looked like he didn't hit it very well, and it looked like it was going to slice foul. And then all of a sudden, they're showing the camera, and who was in left?
That was Pearson at that point.
Pearson. So Pearson's backing up to the wall. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to go out. And then he jumps and misses it, and the guy's rounding third.
But it would have been, and so I look up, and then all of a sudden it's a triple, and I'm going, you got to be kidding me. It gave me the same vibes. Most people probably don't remember this, but I was at the game, so it's a little bit more memorable for me. In Game 2 of the National Championship Series against Florida 2 years ago, Ty Evans hit a skyscraping grand slam that just landed fair and over the wall in left field. And I was seated about halfway between third base and left field. And when he hit it, the wind was howling out. And when he hit it, it popped straight up in the air. And from my vantage point, I'm looking straight at it. I'm going, well, that's a pop-up into the outfield. And it just never came down. And that was kind of the vibes with that swing last night, where it just never came down and ended up being a triple. So, that's one where it shouldn't have gotten to that point. LSU should have put the game away earlier than they did, and then they didn't. And you got your best bullpen guy out there, and he just didn't necessarily come through. But I wanted to mention a couple of those things as well. I also wanted to mention that I thought that LSU did a couple things really well. The hit and run that Jones smoked into left, well, it wasn't hit and run. The runners were moving on a 3-2 count that Jones smoked into the outfield when Curiel got thrown out at third base, not sliding. That was good offense. And then the Jake Brown hit and run, that was a hit and run. The runner's going, he smokes it into right field, and you're able to wheel the guy into third base. That was really good offensive play there. And then Steven Milam facing a guy that throws a ball with a lot of sink on it and then threw him a breaking ball there. It's easy to roll that over. And Milam did a great job of getting underneath the baseball, hitting that sac fly, getting it into the outfield. And a big swing and a really good at bat there from a guy who's been struggling offensively. For him to get that ball into the outfield, I thought was very encouraging. Michael Braswell had a good night at the dish. Obviously, shouldn't have gotten thrown out at third base. But for him to get 3 hits, he's been a nemesis of South Carolina. He lit him up in the SEC tournament last year, then was great again last night. Again, I talked about this at the top of the show. I did not think LSU's offense was terrible last night. In my story, I wrote they weren't good enough. Clearly they weren't. They lost the game. But it's not like you did nothing. There have been times where they've gone on the road this year and done nothing. Against Auburn, I think they scored in 3 innings in the whole weekend. Against Texas A&M, against the back end of that staff, they just were non-existent offensively. That's not the case in this game. You had 11 hits and you scored 5 runs. All the while, you rolled into 2 double plays and got thrown out at third base twice, which is not necessarily your bats. That's just poor play. But it's not like they're in some sort of massive funk. They hit the ball pretty hard last night. Hernandez scorched one that the left fielder made a diving catch on. They hit some balls really hard. I thought they hit a couple balls pretty well to center field that were a ball didn't carry, but they gotta score more runs tonight. I'd love to see the ball leave the ballpark a little bit. I gave a prediction yesterday. I think that Jared Jones breaks out this and hits 2 home runs this weekend. He hit the ball hard twice. I know he struck out twice. He hit the ball really hard twice as well, got 2 hits. And then there's one guy that we need to start talking about a little bit here. I'm not concerned, but it's worth mentioning. Derek Curiel has hit a little bit of a wall here. Let's just call it what it is. He has 11 strikeouts in the last 7 games, and in the 11 games before that, he had 3. He was 1 for 15. It was a huge one against Arkansas. It was the 2-run single to tie the game in the 7th or 8th inning of the first game. Huge single to left field, but he didn't get a hit the rest of the weekend. He wasn't great last night. He did get on base twice via the base on ball and the hit by pitch, but he's not hitting the ball like he was early. And I feel like that's going to come back around, but it is worth mentioning. You've got a guy that's been so great all year, and you hear all the time about that cliche, the freshman wall. You hit the freshman wall. Let's hope that's not the case with Derek Curiel and that he does snap out of it, but he's swinging and missing a little bit right now. He's not hitting the ball as hard as he has previously. That's a guy LSU needs to wake up. So I'm calling for those 2 guys kind of bust out a little bit. I still think Jared Jones hits 2 home runs this weekend. We'll see if that starts tonight. I would sincerely hope so. So, again, our Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. We got 1 segment left to go. We will come back. I'll give you one more thought on the LSU-South Carolina game tonight. Get you maybe caught up on the PGA Championship leaderboard, and we'll get on down the road here on this Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. Just go by and see the dealership. It's awesome. It is first class in every way. The building is state of the art. The ambiance in there is great. It kind of feels like when you walk in there, you're walking into a 5-star hotel. It's got this nice little peaceful rock waterfall deal. The service aisle is incredibly clean. They've got snacks out for you. A tremendous coffee machine. When I went there last with Ellen, our AE on the account, she doesn't even really drink coffee that much, and she had to go make a coffee because the coffee maker is so awesome over there. You can get any kind of coffee that you would like if you want to spend some time there while your car's in the service aisle. But as I always tell you, you don't have to spend time there because if you buy a Genesis of Baton Rouge, you get 3 years of complimentary valet maintenance, which means they'll come get your car and service it. It's an incredible experience, an incredible staff, an incredible facility, all their airline at PQ. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. If you're looking for a new vehicle and you haven't thought of a Genesis, just go stop by. Give it a look. Give it a try. I promise you will see the difference. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge. Go find every car that's on the lot online at genesisofbatonrouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
I'm trying to find the I'm trying to find the promos for this week, and
how's that going?
It's a
bit of a struggle.
Yeah, for some reason I usually put the little flag on the emails when they're important. And
it's real fun when you're on live radio and you're trying to find something on your screen and you just can't find it. And you really don't know what to do while you're trying to fill the time. It's real fun.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense why. But anyways, the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge Spring Cha-Ching, powered by Citizens Bank and Trust, is back. Register today at 1045ESPN.com for your chance to win $5,000 in cash. It's the Spring Cha-Ching from Citizens Bank and Trust and 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. I found it.
Good job, Beck.
Thanks.
Did you get a chance to listen to OTB this morning?
I didn't, actually.
Emotional show today, and that's to be expected.
Yeah.
Emotional for T-Bob for sure. Emotional for Alondra. Emotional for Taylor. I didn't see Jake cracking over there a little bit, but there was one point where T-Bob was talking and Jake's head was kind of in his hands, and I couldn't tell if he was like laughing or if he was like a little bit emotional. I couldn't quite tell. But it was an emotional show. It's a bittersweet day for us here, I guarantee. I talked about this at the top of the show, but there's a lot of like last day of school vibes here. Just because of T-Bob's departure on this Friday. And it's, again, bittersweet for all of us here. I think something that I can certainly say, and it's such a testament to T-Bob and what he's meant here, is like the emotion was obvious from a lot of people, and it just feels like there's going to be a missing piece. And we're obviously so thrilled that they announced this morning that Matt Flynn is going to join Jacob Hester starting in June on the show, and that's going to be awesome to have those two guys who have a great relationship, have a ton of chemistry, and obviously have a wealth of knowledge to handle our morning drive, which we're thrilled about. But T-Bob has been here for almost a decade, and this is undeniably true. He is one of one. And there's such a presence about him that you just can't replace. Matt and Jake are going to do an awesome job. I can't wait to listen. But you can't just go get the next T-Bob. And I mean that in the absolute best way. And he has been great to me, to everyone here, and he's done such a great job here. T-Bob and I are like exact opposites. I want to talk about sports all the time, and I want to get into the numbers, and I want to talk about the RPI, and I want to talk about things that most people probably don't love to talk about all the time. And T-Bob wants to get into pop culture, and he wants to have a good time, and he wants to deviate from things, and he's great at that, and I actually like that aspect of him. But he did such a great job. He's going to be so awesome at Barstool. That's a perfect fit for him, and we're so thrilled and proud of him for that. But undeniably, he's leaving a hole here, and that was very evident today because you can sense that people are sad about that. And we took a chance after their show to celebrate him this morning, and he certainly deserves it. And I can't wait to see what he does up there in Chicago. And when I go, which got to happen sooner rather than later. It's been 3 years since I got there for a Cubs game. I'll have somebody to get on the horn, so very much looking forward to that. And a huge congrats to T-Bob, and a job well done here at Guarantee, I think is the best way to put that. He was phenomenal on our morning show for as long as he was, and he'll be a bright shining star nationally with Barstool as he makes that transition here next month. All right, briefly, let's talk LSU and South Carolina before we get out of here. I made a decision earlier this morning talking about this game and looking at it, how I feel. Y'all know I'm bleeding purple and gold right there with you every step of the way. And Cade Anderson's not Paul Skeens. Cade Anderson's not Aaron Nola. And Cade Anderson has had some trouble with the home run ball at times. But the other piece of this is Cade Anderson is an immense talent. He is one of the best pitchers in college baseball. He's been awesome this year. He's able to get out of jams because he can strike guys out. He can work deep in games. He's shown he can be a workhorse. It's not anything for him to go out there and throw 115, 120 pitches. And so while last night stings and there's a bitter taste in everyone's mouth given that lead up, like, you have to feel awesome with Cade Anderson getting the baseball. Like, there are 14 other teams in the league that would probably, if given truth serum, trade their starting pitcher tonight for Cade Anderson. I think Tennessee's fine with Liam Doyle. They're probably not trading. Everybody else would. So once they throw the ball out on the mound tonight and Jake McCoy for South Carolina picks it up and Derek Carroll digs in and we're ready to roll, we're playing baseball tonight. Last night's over and LSU's got Cade freaking Anderson on the mound tonight. That's a big deal, and that it gives LSU a massive leg up in this game. So all is not lost. Your postseason positioning is still okay. Your RPI is good. Your quadrant 1 wins are good. Your position in the conference is good. Your conference wins are good. What the nation thinks of you is positive. You just got to go win one baseball game tonight. Win one baseball game. You win tonight. Anderson throws it great. Your bats come alive a little bit. You hit 3 balls out of the ballpark. You win a game 10-4. All of a sudden, the vibes completely shift going into Saturday when you hand the ball to Anthony Ianson. And this exact conversation I'm having to you with Cade Anderson translates to Anthony Ianson. And I would venture to guess there are 15 other teams in the SEC that would take Anthony Ianson in the baseball on Saturday based on who they have starting in that game. 15 other teams. So nothing changes from what I said on Monday, I opened the show on Monday. LSU's coming off a 2 out of 3 against Arkansas, and I said this: LSU is good enough to win the national championship. They're good enough to beat anybody. That doesn't mean they're getting out of their own regional. It doesn't mean they're getting a national seed, but everybody's got warts. Everybody's got flaws. LSU's certainly not immune to that, but they are good enough when they play well, and they're certainly good enough when they're at home. And the point of the next 48 hours, actually closer to 24, 27, is to make sure that you're playing at home the rest of the postseason. And that starts with handing the ball to Cade Anderson, who is going to be a first-round pick next month. So I'm bummed out about last night. It was a it was an awful loss. But it's gone. You've got one of the best pitchers in the country going tonight. You're playing a team that's not very good. You need to go out there, handle your business, and get to tomorrow with a chance to play one game for a national seed. And I'll be pretty honest with you. If you told me February 1st, when we were 2 weeks to opening day, hey, you can have one game to go play it against a team that has 6 league wins to go be a national seed and play your games at home, I would have taken that 10 out of 10 in a heartbeat. I would have taken it. So the point of today is to get to tomorrow. And to get to tomorrow, you got one of the best dudes on the bump. That's a big, big deal. And at 6 o'clock, it's time to go get them. So that's my pep talk for the day to the LSU team that is assuredly not listening. But maybe to you, the fan, get a little fired up. I'm going to head out of here. Probably going to grab a margarita on the way home. Let's just be honest about it. Probably going to happen. And then we'll settle in, watch some baseball, and hopefully LSU plays a better ball game than they did last night. LSU in South Carolina tonight at 6 o'clock. You can listen on our sister station, Eagle 98.1. Pregame fires up at 5:30. It'll be Chris Blair and Bill Franquez on the call. Out in the PGA Championship, Jonathan Vegas has the lead. He was great again today, shot a 70. He is 8 under, 2 clear of Matthew Pavon. Alex Smalley in that group. Max Homa, really good round today of 64. He is 5 under. Not a very good leaderboard in terms of the names, but we'll see what materializes over the weekend. Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy still out on the golf course this afternoon. So I'll be watching all of that this morning as well. Fired up this afternoon as well. Fired up for Monday's show. We'll react to all the things that happen in the next 2 ball games, and I'll certainly dive deep into LSU's postseason resume as we'll have the SEC tournament bracket all set up. So join us for that. Our Friday shows are brought to you by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Need a po' boy? No better spot to get it than our friends over at Cork Government between Foster and Jefferson's, online at corksfishandshrimp.com. Missed any of the show today? Catch it on demand. Wherever you find your sound, 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Search Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, review. We appreciate your feedback and appreciate y'all for getting our content in front of as many folks as we can. Open the show talking baseball. Preston Guy talking some football. Koki Riley joined us from Columbia. All that on demand wherever you get that sound. We're out of here. Matt Moscona is going to drive you home and finish your work week out. We'll see you Monday, same time, same place, for another edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.